Good afternoon. This is the House Appropriations Committee. It is Wednesday, February 4th, 2026. We're continuing to go through the FY27 budget, and this afternoon we're delighted to have with us the Agency of Education. So welcome, and some of you have been here, but some of you have not. So we'll go around and introduce ourselves first, and then we'll have you introduce yourselves and give us your presentation. Okay.
Good afternoon. I'm Dave Iacoboni from Morrisville. I represent the Lamoille, Washington district.
Welcome, everybody. John Costanza from Burke, and I represent 10 towns in the Essex Caledonia district. I'm not going to list them all today. Ask me anytime.
Hi, I'm Mike Nigro. I represent Bennington and Powell. Tom Stevens from Waterbury, representing the Washington Chip District.
Marty Feltus from Linden. I represent Linden, Sutton, and Sheffield, Wheelock, and Newark.
I'm Robin Shy from Middlebury.
Dick Willie from Burlington.
Rubber Squirrel, Underhill, and Sherrick.
Wayne LaRoche, Highgate, Franklin, Berkshire, and Richford.
And Representative Mike Maricki from Putney and Dummerston may be coming in. I'm not sure if he has a meeting. I can't remember what he told me. And Lynn Dickinson from St. Albans Town is not in today. So that's our team. So tell me about yours.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Zoe Saunders, for the record. I'm the Secretary of Education. This is my first time being part of your committee, so I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting us. I'm joined by our fabulous team in our finance division at the Agency of Education. I'll start with Cassandra, our CFO.
Yeah, thank you. Cassandra Ryan, I'm the Chief Financial Officer at the agency. Relatively new in that position, so under a year, but I've been at the agency for about 20 years.
Yeah, Emily Byrne worked with you.
Absolutely, yes, she did.
Just learned that. Both of you, actually, right?
Yeah. Sean Cusno, I'm the Deputy CFO. And yeah, I've been here before.
We're probably glad to have some friends with you. So welcome. Okay, so we have spreadsheets and a presentation, and you orient us to where you want to go.
So I'll start us off by providing an overview. I think in a moment, Cassandra will bring up our slides. So today we're here to share the fiscal year 2027 budget recommendations. For our agenda today, we will start with an overview of the agency. I will share the priorities that we have identified and how that is connected to our budget. We will share the budget overview and key drivers. We will also talk through the specific education services within our budget and the education fund as well. So just as a reminder, when we think about the purpose statement, the Agency of Education is responsible for implementing state and federal education laws, policies, and regulations so that all Vermonters have access to a substantially equal education. We accomplish our mission through the provision of leadership, support, and oversight of Vermont's public education system. We're orienting you here to our new structure at the Agency of Education. We have completed a reorganization over the summer, and that was done intentionally to align our expertise and resources as an agency to meet the most pressing needs of the field. We are organized into 4 key areas. Under the Secretary's office, we have a policy and communications division. We actually expanded this team with a recognition that we are focused on customer service and looking to differentiate the ways in which we connect with stakeholders across Vermont. Also, we recognize that policy is an annual job. It's also about implementation. And so we'll talk a lot about how the budget is reflective of our implementation priorities. And then our legal team is also under the Secretary's office, provides a lot of counsel on a range of issues, both state and at the federal level. Our operations team is organized to support under that is finance, data management, a couple of new divisions that we've created, including safe and healthy schools, grants management, which is really to maximize all federal and state dollars available to our districts, and education program approvals, also a new division to ensure that we have a high quality of education in every context where we deliver education across the state. We have established a new academics area, and this is intentional to elevate and strengthen our academic leadership and support. Within this vision, within this area, we have special education has been elevated within our organization, given the level of focus. And we've created new divisions. One is focused on curriculum and instruction. Another in really thinking about education programs and ensuring that there's a continuity of quality and alignment across pre-K all the way through adult education. And strategy and accountability is another area within our new reorganization. Under that, we focus on ensuring that we are really driving towards our goals as an agency, being really clear-eyed around our strategies. Assessment falls under the purview of strategy and accountability. And we also recognize that it's not just test scores as we think about school and district quality. So within this work, we're aligning all of our different accountability tools to ensure that there's one coherent framework by which we're setting expectations for school and district quality, and that we as an agency are organized to provide additional support in that area, which is a focus of our school improvement and district support division.
You have a lead, or maybe you have an org chart anyway, but.
I do have an org chart a little bit later, so we
Okay,
can kind
so
of
we can see how that all works.
how it all fits in. Yep. I think the main point here is we're very much, this reorganization was intentional. It followed our environmental scan, which identified where we needed to focus our efforts as an agency. Since you have me there, we don't have to make a picture.
That's right.
So within the message here today, we'll talk about our education spending growth. This is largely consistent with what we see year over year. There's some inflation and increased costs largely due to healthcare. We also see growing student needs, both from mental health support all the way to additional academic interventions that contribute to that spending. Within the governor's budget proposal, he has included a plan to stabilize property tax growth. And we can talk a little bit more about that through the presentation. We also are in the process of developing and starting to implement our strategic plan. As I mentioned, our reorganization was an outgrowth of our strategic planning process to make sure that we were able to deliver on those objectives. Our strategic plan is structured across 5 strategic pillars, which is recognizing Vermonters' focus on a whole child education, and that being a value of the work that we do. We also are expanding the support to the field. So we've established key norms for how we work as an agency. So we're data-driven, collaborative, and we enhance customer service. And so we see our role really as a partner to the field, which is why we're doing a lot more in terms of training that's really embedded across the state, and are also looking to regionalize in different ways. Within our strategic planning process, we've identified that while we're developing this long-range plan, there's immediate needs now. And so we'll talk a little bit about those and how those are reflected within the budget request. Our key policy initiatives for this legislative session are to transform and modernize our career and technical education system. This is a chief priority that I think many of us share, to expand access to career and technical education. So there's work that will be introduced to the House Commerce and Economic Development Committee around that legislative language that builds upon 3 years of study of our current system. We also prioritize chronic absenteeism. Many states have been really struggling with this since the pandemic, and we are no exception. We have seen a large increase in chronic absenteeism, and it's really important that we're putting strategies in place to ensure students are in schools, they benefit from the learning. Legislative language is being introduced to update the statutory definition so that there's clarity and consistency across this process, and that there's real transparency to roles and responsibilities, because this is an effort that extends beyond the school. In this case, we've been working really closely with our sister agencies to support this work, along with our health partners across Vermont. And then we are here as an agency in a variety of ways to support with key decisions around the education transformation. And
A couple of questions. I have one that go away and you go first.
Chronic absenteeism, any patterns in that?
so we have seen, like many other states, an increase in chronic absenteeism. And we are seeing that when we look at the trends and we disaggregate, we see that students that are unhoused are more likely to have chronic absenteeism, our students living in poverty, also our students with an individualized education plan. And so as we think through those strategies, it's important that we're having concerted efforts to reach those particular populations and ensuring that they're getting the level of support that they need. We have great examples in districts that are doing this work. So over the last several months, we've engaged in focus groups to lift up some of those strategies that are working really well. And we've also partnered with UVM Health. We hosted a large conference in the fall. That's really part of our Everyday Counts campaign to share those strategies that are really effective in reducing chronic absenteeism. And our strategy is very much about being proactive. So there's a legal compliance requirement when it gets into truancy, but research has indicated that just focusing on truancy alone is not addressing the challenges, the root challenges, and that's why we're focusing more proactively.
Portion or magnitude problem.
That is better.
Well, state, but just in general.
Yeah, so I can follow up with the exact numbers, but I think it's about a 33%, I think, chronic absenteeism rate.
It's a lot.
It's a,
It's true, it's nationwide.
it is nationwide, but I do want to follow up to make sure that I give you the accurate numbers, or maybe Torin, our Director of Policy and Communication, if you might, we had a presentation, if you might be able to, I'm going to phone a friend over there to get the actual data. And so we have been following national trends. We're a little bit above the national trends, but it's still a dip that is concerning. We're finalizing the most recent data to share out. Hopefully, we're going to be seeing some improvement because it has been an area of focus that we have shared with districts across the state.
Right, and so if there's a presentation, you can always send it to Autumn and she'll get it to us.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks.
Try to keep all of those numbers in the back of my head, but
It's a lot
to make sure.
Education has a lot of data. Jonathan and me.
So the work that you're doing with CTE transformation
Yes.
here, I've done a little bit of work with their local CT programs with some instruction and certification courses for students there, which has been a great benefit for them moving on to potential, workforce opportunities here.
Yes.
But as you're looking just globally at all the CT programs out there, what couple of things are you seeing are common across maybe a majority of them that would help them to move to that better direction to, modernize, upgrade what they've been offering for some time?
Right. So I would say that we see a lot of variability. Actually, I'll start there. We actually see a lot of variability with how we're delivering career and technical education. There's different governance models that we have in place in the state. When we did an analysis of different programs, there's variability in program quality based on the performance metrics that are tied to these programs. There's also great variability in terms of the cost of those programs, even for the same type of program, but it'll depend on where it's offered. So the legislature actually started this work by commissioning a study of our CTE system. We at the agency have continued that work over the last 2 years. And we have a number of reports that I think would be really of interest to you that go deep into the variability and also the recommendations that we're putting forward. Something else that we see is that students' proximity to a tech center is very predictive of whether or not they'll take advantage of CTE programs. And so part of the longer term strategy is really moving towards, regional comprehensive high schools where CTE and high school are co-located. And so what we're doing with our modernization plan is making sure that no longer is CTE just available to a select few of students because of where they live, but that it is really a universal access for CTE. And it's just part of the way that we deliver education in Vermont, ensuring that we have high academic rigor and that we're giving students those hands-on learning opportunities that are connected to industry. Another key area of improvement is early exposure in middle school. And so at the locations where the tech centers are able to provide the pre-tech programs, we're seeing a lot more participation and engagement. And in terms of looking at outcomes, overall as a state, we're seeing a decline in our graduation rates, but for CTE concentrators, we're seeing really high graduation rates. So just reflective of that level of engagement and interest. We have a full slide deck on that as well, and really happy. But the proposal that we're bringing forward is building upon 3 years of studies. It does contemplate governance changes for CTE, also making sure that we're funding CTE at a level to ensure that access and creating early exposure in middle school. The other key piece is that there's a consistent level of support for training around the high quality programs as well. So we're really excited about what's moving forward. We know that the proposal will continue to be refined and improved, of course, as it goes through the legislative session. But we really feel like this is the year.
Those are good examples. Thank you.
Great. So I was going to ask about funding and governance structure. So it sounds like those are being addressed in there. And maybe also, I imagine that the education transformation is going to impact this potentially as well. CTE doesn't operate in a silo from the schools. So one of the things that I have heard anecdotally, and I'm not the world's expert on this, but that there is, for example, students can't always get to other places. So the Rutland CTE has a waiting list of people who want to do certain trades things. In Middlebury, the Hannaford CTE has openings for it. But because they're across school districts or county lines, or I don't know what, it wasn't about transportation, they weren't allowed to come to our place where there are openings. And that just doesn't make any sense to me. So I hope there's a lot more common sense in how we're going to be organized.
Glad you raised that, because that happens in my area.
Yeah, I mean, they should be able to
Like
go
partake
to
of
where there's an
something.
open.
There's a distance thing there, it just isn't. Well,
That's something we've focused on, and particularly last session, our CTE director, Ruth Durkee, has been working really closely with CTE centers to make sure that students can take advantage of those opportunities when there are openings. It is allowable. Sometimes there's not the awareness. And so we've been supporting districts with that. And we have some examples of how that's worked really effectively with the type of partnerships that are being established across CTE centers, particularly in Barry. We had some examples that we were able to share around Spalding as well.
Okay. So this is all in commerce right now. So if we want to get more, commerce is the place to talk about it.
It is. We presented to a joint committee that included Senate and House committees.
Yes.
And we expect that the legislative language will be introduced very soon, in which case then we'll have a lot more further conversations, but we're excited.
Did you have a quick follow-up with?
The roadblocks at the district level for the class. What are you talking about? You know, you're in for use for the CT school in another district. That's the roadblock at the district level. There's one saying no. Who's saying no?
So sometimes the roadblock is awareness that students are able to enroll, and sometimes students may not want to take advantage of another program that's not at the tech center that they were applying for. But if the committee is really interested, we had a lot of conversations around this last session because we knew it was an issue, and we learned from some best practices of tech centers that were actually able to do this really effectively and reduce their wait list because students were then enrolling at another tech center. So we have some lived experience of how we can manage through it within our existing statute to support those students that are interested in making sure that we're getting all those seats filled where there are open spots.
It's not a fix that's needed, not a legislative fix or anything.
There were some adjustments last session to kind of emphasize the opportunities available within statute, and our agency made commitments to provide further outreach to tech centers to make sure that the communication that was going out to students and parents was really clear around their opportunities.
Move us along because we can spend hours always talking about education, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Okay.
That's part of the reason I haven't been here, because when we get so excited, I get you derailed and we don't get to talk about the budget. So these are our strategic pillars of our strategic plan. As I mentioned, we are taking a very holistic approach to our education plan. We are set out to improve statewide academic performance, expand college and career readiness, promote safe and healthy schools, support operational effectiveness, and ensure high quality special education delivery and differentiated support for all students across Vermont. Next slide. Within these strategic pillars, we have identified key goals, and we recognize that even though we're building this long-range strategic plan, there are needs now. And so these are the accelerated initiatives that we have already launched. So one that I will point your attention to under academic excellence is Read Vermont. And this was designed to support the implementation of Act 139, which is Vermont's most comprehensive literacy legislation to really promote statewide improvement. And we'll talk a little bit about how we've been trying to fit all the resources, maximize all the resources that we have to fund these initiatives. And I think you're going to hear that in the presentation. We're coming forward with a budget request that is really strategic. We've been really thoughtful around what the biggest priorities are, and we have reevaluated and realigned our teams as an organization, and also used every penny that we have to fund some of these key initiatives. And then you had asked about the organizational chart. This is a high-level overview of our new organizational structure. We can also follow up with a memo that was sent in the fall that provides more description around how we came to this structure and what's included. And I'll just note within this, everything that has an asterisk represents a new division. And so that's, you'll see, tied really closely with our strategic pillars. So we see we have a safe and healthy schools division. We have a safe and healthy schools as a pillar of our plan. Academic excellence is a key focus. So we have a whole new area on academic excellence with an emphasis on curriculum and instruction and special education support.
I'm going to just pause you for a second because I wanted to find out, when are statewide graduation requirements supposed to be implemented? And isn't there going to be a statewide calendar too? Is that at the same time?
Yes. So the first cohort for the statewide graduation requirements will be for the year 2031. And also look to trying to make sure I get the right year. We were responsible at the Agency of Education of putting forward recommendations to the State Board of Education. We did that by the end of the calendar year. We did a lot of community engagement. We hosted a strategic planning retreat where we had over 100 educators part of a full day planning to think about those graduation requirements. We did additional sessions all throughout the state leading up to those recommendations that are based on an evaluation of current graduation requirements and evaluating the best practices across the state of Vermont. So those recommendations are now with the State Board of Education. They'll go through their rulemaking process, and we're continuing to support them as they really think through the operational nuts and bolts of how to implement it.
And the statewide calendar is supposed to go into effect when?
The statewide calendar, we don't yet have a proposal, but I have a plan.
Okay. Thank you.
For how to cover.
That's all I know. That's all I need to know. Okay.
To be announced, yes. And so with that, I could talk about all day, but I'm going to turn it over to Sean Kusno to go through our budget details.
All right. So first slide, we're going to talk about key drivers for our budget. So our budget this year is $2.73 billion over all of our appropriations. We have 14 of them, I believe. And it represents a $102.8 million increase over last year. And what's driving that increase is mainly the statewide education spending grant. 113.5 increase is estimated based on the current budget information we have. We'll refine that throughout the session, but so that one appropriation is most of our budget, $2.1 billion. There's some categorical grants coming out of the ed fund that every year increase a little bit, and that covers or accounts for 10 million of the increase. And then we have a couple of decreases this year. Federal funds, we're continuing to remove some of the pandemic era funding from our budget, so 4.7 million. And then 17.4 million is a decrease in our special fund grants, and that's the Medicaid LEA grant program, which you may see show up in the AHS budget. So it's a shift across the agencies.
So are those two, those last two, we knew ESSER and GEAR were going to be ending. Are there position decreases? Is that part of the 4.7 and 17.4 million? There are no position decreases based on that?
No, we didn't fund any positions with any full-time positions with those fundings.
With that money?
Yeah.
Ours are uses for contracted services to deliver strategic initiatives.
Well, we absorb.
Okay.
We're getting the grants out to the LEAs.
If somebody was doing this work, so they're now not going to be doing some of that work. So they can move to shift to other positions within AOE.
So I think our agencies run pretty lean. So I always kind of talk about hitting above our weight class. And I think that was really true during the pandemic when everyone was all hands on deck. But part of our reorganization is also identify those major job responsibilities. So again, that's all aligned to our reorg and strategic plan.
All right. This next slide shows the key budget drivers for what we call kind of our operations. So it's all our staff and our contracts and operating costs. So basically everything in our agency except for the grant money. So we're looking at 42.3 million this year to fund the agency, the increase of 1.13 million. And some of the drivers are healthcare, 10% increase in healthcare costs, normal personnel cost increases as salaries, or steps, earn more each year. We have a reduction in our contracts, again, pandemic funding expiring, and we're refocusing some of our resources there. And then every year we have administrative cost increases, which are, funding we're kind of given, and those increase each year. Financing management provides how much we owe in some of these items, like the insurance or the cost of the statewide systems, like our ERP system vision, HR costs, and the ADS IT division. We share some of that cost. Next, we have a couple new requests, and I'll talk about some of these.
Sure. So these requests are very much aligned with the priorities that we have shared with you. The first request is for 5 permanent positions. These were positions identified as limited service positions through an appropriation last year within Act 73. They are critical positions in order to support the activities aligned to Act 73, and also is a way for the agency to rebuild the field-facing team to provide more embedded support in driving district and school improvement across the state. So it is within the governor's budget to recommend that these 5 positions move from a limited service to 5 permanent positions, because we have deemed them very critical to our strategic direction and important to providing the level of support in the field during some of the transition work within Act 73, and then in perpetuity, really supporting with the ongoing continuous improvement efforts that we are significantly ramping up at the agency.
So if I'm recalling correctly, I think we gave you $4 million last year for education transformation. Are you going to tell us what you've done with it? That's in here. Okay, great, thank you.
So no new requests, but we can talk through how we're organizing those.
Yeah, how you're using the money, that'd be great.
And then the other request within the budget is for a reversion and a reappropriation. I'm going to let Sean expand on that. This doesn't actually represent new dollars, new money. It's a way for us to realign our resources to address a significant need, which is around literacy. So the state of Vermont has some of the sharpest declines in literacy performance compared to any other state in the country based on our NAEP data. Act 139 was passed to address that. The agency is seeking these resources to provide job-embedded coaching for principals and teachers across Vermont to train them in the science of reading and with those evidence-based strategies to help our young students learn to read, because we know that that is a critical equity measure, is being able to read. It sets them up for success later in life.
Going back to the 5 permanent positions, they were limited service last year. How have you filled them all?
We are in the recruitment process. I will share, being an 8-month funded position is challenging for us when we're making the offers.
So are any of them filled right now? Were they supposed to be filled in FY26?
So they were funded for 8 months as limited service. They were required to go through the pool, so that took some additional time for us to identify and also to ensure that they're at the right pay grade level, because they are new positions. So as soon as all of that work happened, we immediately posted, and we are in the final phases of the interview process for those roles.
So we put money in last year's budget for that, in the FY26 budget for 8 months. I think we probably did 8 months because we decided you weren't going to have them all starting July 1st because you had to go through this process. But it sounds like it's taking longer than we had anticipated. And so you won't be using all the funding in FY26 that we budgeted for this, right? That you won't be using all of the funding.
Just because of the higher date. So yeah, that would be something to think through in terms of the final budget request.
I'm just thinking for the current fiscal year, if it was going to be 8 months of this fiscal year and you still don't have any of the positions and there's only 5 months left of this fiscal year, right? You're not spending all the money.
Yeah. I think part of what Secretary Saunders is saying is because they were limited service, even now, it's hard to fill them because they expire and until this request gets approved to make them permanent, there's not a lot of people who will sign on to a position that.
But we do limited service all the time, and isn't it?
This is a very short term.
It was just for 8
This is,
months.
it was only for 8 months. It's atypical. Usually they're
So it's like 3 years.
3-year period.
Yes, right.
So this put us in a really challenging
Good.
position for recruitment. And these are really high-level senior roles. So we're asking people to, move away from a leadership role that they have, which is more high-paying and secure, to take on an 8-month position. So that's why, as we're kind of doing this review, it's really critical for us even to be able to fill these roles, that there's kind of an intent and a direction to making these permanent so that we're getting the highly qualified folks that we need for the roles.
And did you already tell us what the titles of these positions were?
Yes, that was all part of our budget request. So there are 5 positions, and I'll kind of do a deep dive. 2 of them are really related more to academics. 2 are more related to operations and kind of system alignment, and 1 is related to data. So this team is working in a cross-functional way to really evaluate the current challenges and opportunities, both as we think about merging to new districts, but also really our district quality, education quality standards, ensuring that we can create some consistency around that statewide, so that all students are benefiting from those.
So is this permanent classified or permanent exempt?
This would be classified. These are classified positions.
Thank you.
To share a little more about the 700,000. So again, that's not new funding we're asking for. That was some carryover money we had from last year. And it was initially provided to fund some system upgrades we've had. And it was funded out of the ARPA SFRF funds. So again, some more pandemic era funding. And that was $4 million. And then we right-sized that a couple years ago, bringing it down to about $3 million. And then the administration did an administrative action, recoded some of our general fund costs to this money, and then gave it to us as this general fund pot. Now 2026 is here. Those systems are going to be implemented this year, and we found we won't need all of that money. So we do have a need in literacy, to kind of fund the requirements of Act 139. So we're asking to revert some of that carryover and then reappropriate it so we could spend it where we need it in the Read Vermont program for literacy.
So that's for FY 27.
It will turn out to, be spending FY 27. It's again carryover from 25, so it's no new funding.
But you weren't going to use it in 26?
We're using some of this. Yeah, we're using the federal money first, and then we would
Right.
dive into the state general fund money.
And if you're not spending the money up above, are you going to have carry forward into 27 that'll help fund those 5 positions?
From the
Yep.
one-time
The one-time.
transformation money. Yeah, for sure.
So I think here what you're seeing is just, we've done a really deep review and evaluation of the biggest needs and making sure that we're aligning the resources that we have at the agency to address those areas and maximizing every dollar available.
So being the money committee, we ask these detailed questions to find out where it's carried forward, if you're really using it, how much you need, what the time frame is. So
Yes.
get questions from us that you're not going to necessarily get in the other committees. Right, wait.
So the freeing up of the federal money, that's gonna show up someplace else in the other budget?
That happened last fiscal year. And so what got freed up, they put it in a special appropriation for this system. Well, it's general fund, but yeah, it's not in our base budget. So, yeah. All right. So we'll continue. New appropriation structure. So we took advantage of the reorganization. Can I say that word? to change how we do our internal budget. So for our operations, all of our employees and contracts, those used to be in two appropriations, B500 and B501. We're gonna combine those into one appropriation for a couple of reasons, ease of accounting and so where you're used to seeing the two in the budget bill, you'll only see the one line educate for education services, and you think it's gonna be B501 going
And
forward.
500 will stay at the secretary's office.
500 won't be there.
It's going away.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and on the ups and downs, which I saw you have, you'll see it combined there as well, so. But just wanted to make you aware of it.
Okay.
Table, this is our table of our entire budget, and it's broken out by personal services, operating and grants. And we went through the key drivers earlier. This just shows the actual numbers, compared to last year.
Grants is, that includes the payment to the education fund.
Yeah, so
That's the big words.
Yeah. All right, the next table, we're looking at just that general fund and shows our increase over last year. Personal services operating, and we break out the grants. Let's see, adult basic education, that one grows based on the formula. So that was a large increase as the base grows, base payment amount, and then the number of students.
So that's good. I mean, because that means more adults are going back and getting the skills they need to
Yeah.
be in the workforce at a higher pay grade, right? So
And that whole program is funded, I believe 60% general fund and 40% ed funds.
Right.
We'll see a bump in that line.
Sure. Question, Wayne?
Personal services increased by over 10%.
Yeah, so we worked hard to keep general fund at target, and the things that are pushing it over are that adult basic ed increase. And then the new request for the 5 permanent positions, so that'll go into the base, that's about 700,000.
So those are,
Yes, they're included, yeah. Right, the next table are some of our other funds, except, all of our other funds except ed funds, are federal funds, special funds, and transfer funds. And here, the big thing to notice is the minus 20 million. And that's made up of our grant reduction that we talked about, and then the Medicaid.
It's the ESSER in here. Oh, no, it's the Medicaid transferring it to.
Both, yeah, because this is both federal and then the special funds is where Medicaid shows up. So the 17.4 million plus the 7 million that we're showing a reduction in federal makes up the big change there. Next, we're gonna go into that one appropriation we talked about, education services, and Secretary Saunders will talk about more details here.
I think I probably described this early on. I probably got ahead of myself as I was talking about the reorganization. Are there any questions around how we're organized within these new areas of our structure?
I'm wondering, I know that the agency has been running low on staff over the last few years, and you're now just hiring these other 5, but have you been able to fill vacant positions this last year?
Yes, in fact, we really are pleased with the talent pool that we're receiving for some of these positions we've created. I will note that through the period of uncertainty during the federal dollars and not understanding if they would be taken away, there was some intentionality around holding some of those vacant roles. And then through our reorganization, we were also looking at, for those more recent vacancies, how we might need to shift those job responsibilities to align with the needs of the agency. And so what that resulted in was us being able to create some new leadership roles within our organization to align with our new structure and provide some additional resources around and expertise around special education, both on the finance side and on the program side, around with academic leadership. So just to share, there was some intentionality for why some of those roles were vacant during that kind of summer period, because we were in the process of really repurposing some of those vacancies into new positions and working with the Department of Human Resources on that, and are now in the process of hiring and recruiting. And we've been really pleased with the talent that we've had for many of those roles. So loving an excellent team.
All right.
This is more just descriptive.
Just more detail, if
Yeah.
there's
Okay.
specifics that you have around how we are organized. I do think the memo that we provided would be helpful for you. It has a little bit more narrative around how these positions, how these divisions are organized. One other thing I would just note, I've talked about the agency-wide strategic plan. We also are doing division level planning. So every single division within our organization is identifying their core work, but also some of the strategic areas where they are supporting with the implementation of these agency-wide goals. And that effort is very much aligned in thinking about where are the places where the divisions need to work together, because we're very much focused on collaboration and breaking down silos. So our first division to do this work is really our special education division. We submitted a report in January that's walking you through how that division is really organizing their work aligned to our larger strategic plan, and we're using that and modeling it with every division across the agency.
Question.
Just a real quick one here.
Here, +1802-299.
We turned Debbie off. It's okay. It's about school safety. No, so I do have a question about school safety. So now that's a big topic here across the nation here. What are you learning from other states that helps us to prove that where we are here today? And I know we got lots of school safety pieces already in play here for sure. So I'm not worried about that, but just also what we learn from other states.
Yeah, so school safety sits under our Safe and Healthy Schools division. And we partner with the School Safety Center and also Department of Public Health around all of our initiatives there. We have contracted. So we are providing some training around behavior threat assessments for schools, in addition to thinking about the actual safety and access to the physical plant. There's some work that we've really received great feedback on. We have a national expert who is helping us to provide that training to districts. Also, we host an annual event on school safety that has been well attended as the Governor's School Safety Conference. We bring in experts from across the country to share strategies and also identify some practices that are really effective in schools, doing some tabletop exercises, things like that. But we have a great team that I would suggest we bring in to provide more details. I would say it's personally really important to me. I unfortunately, as you probably know, I most recently was living in Broward County, and we were, the site of one of the largest school shootings in the country. And so have lived through that and understand how challenging it is. So I'm very focused on prevention efforts. It's really critically important to me.
Thank you.
Any questions on this page? I'm not seeing it. Okay.
This table shows our education services appropriations broken out by spending type and then by fund. So we talked about most of the big reasons. Oh, yeah.
You just speak that a
Sure.
little bit and
I see you in that.
lower, yeah.
Yeah. We talked about most of the big changes here, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you had any on this slide. But it kind of shows the federal way at the bottom, the 4 million we talked about. And then in the special funds, you see the 17 million reduction there from the transfer of the grants. Like they move on it.
Do you have people managing those grants in your agency?
Yeah, the Medicaid director
Yeah.
is a part of that position.
So what happens when this moves?
Yeah, I'm not positive there's some carryover or some what you would say, we'll have some activity in 27 left over, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
As you're moving to a new methodology and a new program, there will be a need to operate both programs simultaneously for a bit. There's a 6-month period where folks have the ability to claim on the old system even after it closes. So there will be, it's a unique year where there will be a need to really run both of those programs. In addition, that work is not just the grants. That's the largest dollar value with it, but there are some associated tasks such as monitoring the reinvestment of those funds within our districts, state placed student work. So there's some other work that's in.
And some people could also be redeployed within the agency where you have new work happening. Yeah. Right?
These grants are federal grants coming in. Or are these grants going out?
Which
The grant category.
Yeah.
grants, 209 million. Those are the federal grants coming in.
Yeah, so that's.
So you're managing the federal grant process.
Yeah.
And not necessarily, okay. Once it's in, you drop from it for various purposes. You're not granting it out. You're not sub-granting it out to school districts or anything like that.
Most of the federal funds, the 200 million does go out to this.
With the grant agreements, they have to do,
Yeah.
so they're managing all the grant agreements to all the places that goes out.
Most of the large federal grants have a requirement that the majority would be sub-granted to our LEAs.
So you're managing both sides, federal money coming in and big grant, and then everything that's going out, that's all the small grants.
Next, this slide shows our positions and how they're funded. We're looking at a total of 183 positions in our budget. All but 2.9 of them show up in this appropriation. So 180.1. And the table shows 42% is funded with general fund. We have over 10 with licensing fee money. That's teacher licensing fees. We have some inter-department transfer funded positions. Medicaid funds 18 positions. And then federal is our second biggest with 66 positions.
And the federal funds, I mean, Medicaid's federal funds too, but you separate out Medicaid.
Yeah.
What are the federal positions?
They support the federal programs, they granting the funds out to the districts.
What besides?
Administering some of the federal programs, right? There's work in creating the grant applications, managing all of those provisions that accompany the grant documentation. There may be monitoring responsibilities.
What are the grants that beside, I mean, Medicaid I get, but what are the other federal grants?
So there's the titles. Those are very well.
Title I.
Title I, Title II-A, Title III-A, Title IV-A, Title IV-B. There's IDEA. That's special education.
Special ed, yeah, okay.
Perkins, absolutely for the
BLS
CTEs.
for AEL.
Yeah, and then the AEL does have that.
So essentially, you get a grant agreements going out to every school district. Essentially, and maybe more than one, because it's more than one kind of grant.
Right, yes.
And that's also part of the reason we created a grants management division, this to make sure that we're fully maximizing all dollars and being strategic with their usage.
And you have to account for that money back to federal government, so it has to be dealt with properly.
Accounting for the money, it's doing the reporting, it's
And shows
monitoring the
allowable
funding,
uses.
exactly. Great.
Next, we'll talk about the Ed Fund. And I've got a big table here for the Ed Fund. It shows how the agency spends this fund. Most of it, of course, goes out in grants under the big education spending grant. The first line under grants there, 2.1 billion. And there's a bunch of other categorical grants that flow out. Federal Ed as being the next largest at 275 million this year. You see universal meals is here. And we do spend a little bit in the other categories, personal services and operating. We have contracts, statewide contracts that are covered with Ed Fund money. And some of the required spending, our portion of the systems, the state systems coming out of the operating side.
John, you have a question?
I know everybody's heard about this before, but it's been some time. Flexible pathways, just some quick little description about that's providing.
Yeah, yep, there's several grant programs in that dual enrollment.
Right.
Early college, there's a virtual learning, program. And those are the big ones.
Anything new from this current year?
We will be releasing a report in the next couple of weeks that are going to show you the participation in all of those programs, including some of the increases that we've seen, which we would, are positive because we want students to be taking advantage of those pathways for our college and career readiness. So we'll have some additional information available to you on update on the participation in those flexible pathway programs.
Great to see that.
An education grant is an estimate because we don't have our budgets in. So that number is like one of the last things
It
that's
is, yeah.
put in once the budgets are all assumed. So
One
it
reason.
could go up, could go down.
Yes.
It's like,
That concludes our slides.
anything else? We have two of these. July, two of these. Anything else on your spreadsheets that we haven't heard about? It sounds like it's all pretty,
Yeah.
this stuff's all in what you just did.
Right, yep,
Size paper.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess I still want to know how you spent the $4 million and I don't see anything about that.
So the work that we're doing there has obviously been staged so that we can, be strategic in how we're using those dollars. So a first pass at that was making sure we could do our reorganization. So we've got the folks in place to help to manage that, and then identify what are the areas where we need some additional expertise to ensure that those are, these are one-time funds, and we're designing them in a way to really build capacity of the agency. So we are finalizing the RFPs that will be released to provide contracted services in some key areas. So one is helping us to improve upon our data dashboards. And that is a really large effort that will support everything we do in really thinking through evaluating our current data collection processes, ensuring that they're aligned with best practices, working with the field to identify how we need to structure some of these improved data analytics to drive decision-making at every level. At our strategic planning retreat, I organized a breakout session where I worked with educators across the state to identify the areas that were most critical as we prioritize the analytics and the data reporting. And that working group is going to continue to be part of our engagement with this contractor. It's scheduled so that we will be able to release some enhanced reporting that's kind of what I call low tech right now, like get information in the field that's helping to drive some of these key decision-making, certainly related to redistricting, but also larger around where there's opportunity for system alignment and quality improvement. And then through that user requirements phase, we'll actually be able to publish enhanced dashboards, which I know will really support everyone's work, not just in the field, but it is designed to also give you information as a legislature.
So what I'd like to see is, here's $4 million at the top of a spreadsheet. We did this activity across this much. We did, so we'd like something like that. We're the bean counters here for this.
Sorry, I get excited about the work.
I know, and I did that, but that's what I'm looking for, and the education committee can get all the backup detail about it, but I want to see actually how we're spending the money.
Yeah, so it is, we will definitely follow up with you on that, and we have structured it to provide some additional data analytics, on the ground field support around system alignment, curriculum support, and also board development. So we're really thoughtful around how we've categorized the scope of work. And the time spent is thinking about how do we actually really ensure that we have the right structure for those RFPs, right? Because some of these are really different sets of expertise that we need. And we feel really confident that we're in the place now where we can proceed and get the right resources in place to help us with this work.
Thank you.
And as a reminder, not all the $4 million came to education.
That's true.
So there was 700,000 that went to other agencies. Some came even the General Assembly, I guess, got a little bit. So,
Yeah, some for the work that the Joint Fiscal Office is doing
Yes.
around the foundation formula
Right.
was funded from that
That's
initial.
4 million.
And
Okay.
then my understanding is that they're close to finalizing a contract for that.
Yes, I've heard that as well. Yeah, okay. Wayne, and then maybe Simon.
Just in terms of that dashboard, just broadly, what kinds of data are you gonna put in there? And I'm asking this garbage in, garbage out, let's say data analysis, so the types, just with a range of types.
So in terms of data collection, just for your benefit, we have done a lot of work as an agency to add another layer of data validation and data certification for all of the pieces of data we collect across a range of indicators. So that includes actually having the superintendent and business manager certify everything that we're putting in. So that helps us in terms of ensuring the quality of information we're receiving is accurate and has been validated. And then in terms of the design of the dashboards, we're looking at, we have as part of our strategic plan, we're really clear that this takes a comprehensive approach. So there's academic indicators that would be traditional as you think about assessment data. We're also looking at non-academic indicators, related to chronic absenteeism, related to dropout rate,
That's what I'm getting at. So you're directing them what data you want. I know, for example, the grading across the state has no consistency in terms of the system that they use. Is that going to be correct?
We haven't made recommendations as of yet around around grading. So we have focused on the graduation requirements that's been put forward. And then we're talking about how that supports with our instructional practices in schools, and grading is the next piece of that, but we haven't made specific recommendations around grading at this time.
Other questions? Dave?
Do you find value in national student test results in terms of comparing the performance of schools, or are there just too many other variables?
Yeah. So it's always important to look holistically, right? There's not one data point that gives us a signal. However, the NAEP results, which is the nation's report card, is the one data source we have that compares our academic performance to students across the country. And it is valid and it is reliable. And so it does give us an understanding of how we're performing. The state of Vermont used to be the top leader in academic performance compared to other states across the country. We've now dipped, particularly in literacy, below the pack, below the average. And what we're looking at when you actually compare the trend is we have some of the steepest decline in academic performance compared to any other state in the country. And a lot of that decline started before the pandemic. We also look at other data points. So we're looking at our Vermont, our VT CAP, which is our state assessment results. Our state assessment results largely mirror what we're seeing on the NAEP results, which is that national assessment. We have seen in our most recent data that we're seeing some improvement in 4th and 5th grade literacy, which is promising and we need to build upon, and is very much aligned to all the things we're doing around Read Vermont. And then we look at other indicators that we know are reflective of the conditions of success. So we have seen our graduation rates actually declining as well. Chronic absenteeism has been an area we've focused on that's increased. We look at qualitative data from the mental health surveys that our youth participate in. So it really is comprehensively that we're looking at our data. And the piece is that we need to be clear-eyed around where we're having challenges, and not just look at statewide data. We are also doing some more work as we're thinking through evaluating kind of a gap within subgroups. So we're seeing persistent gaps for those students that would be categorized as historically marginalized. They're performing around 30%. There's a 30% gap when comparing their assessment data to their peers. And so we know that that's an area we need to focus on in improving tier 1 instruction, like quality of instruction for all students, and making sure that we're providing that level of support for our educators across the state of Vermont. So within that, we look at bright spots. So where are we seeing really promising practices? Where are we seeing across the state of Vermont that there has been some growth in key areas, and learning from those schools and districts as well. We see our role as an agency, what we're really moving towards is being able to host more professional learning communities where we're able to more effectively share these best practices and collectively drive improvement, because we all own in these results and have a responsibility to work together to create the best learning environment.
Okay, we're running out of time, so we'll follow up. John, and one last question, you can.
Be real.
Okay.
We all are made aware of these yearly reports, kind of where Vermont stands here. When did you when did you first see a sharp decline? I don't remember, to be honest with you.
So it was before the pandemic. I think the NAEP results around 2000, from after 2015 started to
Yeah.
decline.
Thank you. That was my quick question.
Great, all right. Thank you so much for coming in. Always great to hear what the Agency of Education is up to. We appreciate it, and we'll be in touch as we have more questions, which we probably will, and then the Agency of House Education also will be, you may have already been into their committee, but you will at some point. So, more to come. Great.
Thank you for having
Thank you
us.
very much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for being here.
So committee, we're going to take a quick break, and at 2:15, we have the Adjutant General